Hey everybody, I'm your tech and photo enthusiast. Today I'm going to be unboxing and giving my first impressions on the Ayn Odin 2. Now, Ayn was kind enough to ship my unit out early so I can get this video out, but no, I did pay for this unit with my money. I paid full price for the shipping and everything, including a foreign transaction fee on my credit card. Thanks Indiegogo for not accepting US dollars. But anyway, yeah, basically I got no special instructions from them. I can say whatever I want. It is my unit after all. But thank you again for shipping it out early. I really appreciate that. Now, my unit here is the Odin 2 Max in clear blue, which was actually one of the later ones to get shipped. And finally, I got it. Now, for those of you that order a Max version, you do get a carrying case and a screen protector with your order. Now, the carrying case doesn't come in the box. It actually came separate, but in the same package. And yeah, this is it. Carrying case is actually pretty nice and compact and pretty durable. Zippers open pretty well. And then you get this little tab. So when your device is in here, you can just kind of pop it out. And then this little thing right here protects the screen when you close it. And I gotta admit, this is extremely soft on both sides. It's like one of those like really, really soft blankets that you just wanna like cuddle up in and never get out of your bed. Yeah, that's basically it. It's a very nice and compact case. To give you guys an idea, here's the case that came with my my Steam Deck. Yeah, that's a huge difference in size. I mean, we're talking all of this over here. And then just look at the difference here. It's a lot slimmer. And then for comparison, I also have my Legion Go case over here to give you another idea of just how big the carrying case is for this device. And once again, just look at the difference in that size. Yeah, when we're talking about portability, this is the device to go. Enough about the case. Let's go on to the device itself, which I have right over here. And then we're going to unbox it. Now, I already did open it just to set it up and get it ready so you can play some games and kind of see how it's like in the beginning. And when you open it, you just kind of pull this little tab. And it's a pretty cool like cardboard drawer. And then on top, I have the screen protector, which I already applied. AYN, why couldn't you guys apply this for me? Do you really trust somebody like me to get it on the first try and not get any hair on it? Come on, guys. If you're gonna just throw it in here, at least give us like 2. That way we can screw the first one up because I usually do. Thankfully, when I got it on, I only had 1 fiber under it. And then I was able to get it out with some tweezers because it was in the corner of the screen. Regardless, I would have preferred to just pre-install it at the factory. But I can understand why they didn't considering the price of the unit. And then looking inside, I mean, it's actually pretty nice. They have like a little holographic looking box. And then the holographic stuff continues down here. And then when you pull this out, you got the Odin 2 wrapped up. Ooh, now this is pretty. I don't know about you guys, blue is one of my favorite colors. So when I saw that they had a clear blue, I couldn't resist but purchase that version. Now, back to the screen protector. I don't know if they sent me the correct screen protector because mine came with this weird cutout right up here, as you can see where my finger's pointing. I wasn't sure which way to orient it, whether it's supposed to be up in this corner or down in this corner. The issue though is when I look at either corner, there doesn't seem to be a camera or like an ambient light sensor or anything that the cutout should be there for. So I just kind of picked the top left, which was near what looks like is a microphone. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know why there's that cutout because realistically speaking, there's no camera on here. And if there was an ambient light sensor, you don't need a cutout for it. It'll still detect the light just fine with a screen protector on. Anyway, let's continue. Let's put this aside right here. And then continuing in the box is a cable, probably a USB-C cable so you can charge your device, but there is no USB-C charging brick at all. So yeah, I'm not gonna bother opening that because we're not here for the cables. We're here for this. Held it upside down, my bad. All right, let's put all of this away and we're gonna focus on this device. Now, looking at it, I mean, honestly, this feels solid and it looks really, really great. I mean, I really like the color. And honestly, like when I saw that they had a clear blue version available, I couldn't resist. As for the buttons and ergonomics, basically the A, B, X, Y buttons, they all feel great. They are slightly on the smaller side, but I'm not surprised because of the size of the unit. Now, according to Ayn's website, these buttons are supposed to be dual color injected, which if that means what I think it means, then these graphics shouldn't wear out over time from usage. And that's actually really good to hear. And then the joysticks are Hall effect joysticks. So hopefully no stick drift in the future. And then the best part about this is on the Odin 1, the first version, they actually sell these buttons and the rubber grip or the rubber pad that goes underneath them, which from a repairability standpoint is really great. They even sell the joysticks for the first Odin. So I'm really hoping that they do the same on the Odin 2. That way, if one of your buttons does break or a joystick breaks or whatever happens, you can actually just take it apart, switch them out, repair it without having to replace the whole unit or even trying to send it in for repair when you can do it yourself. And then, yeah, joysticks also are on the smaller side, but I can easily get used to this. Again, this is a very, very small device compared to something like the ROG Ally, the Steam Deck, or the Legion Go. This isn't meant to be a giant handheld. This is a smaller handheld. And I should mention that this is actually an Android handheld, not a Windows device, not a Linux device. Well, Android is Linux, but you get my point. Regardless, it looks great and it feels great. Ergonomics are awesome. Now, looking at everything that we have in terms of buttons and ports, starting with the front, we've got our A, B, X, Y up here, and then we have start and select at the top, which is where I actually prefer them to be. And then in the bottom, we have our Android home button and back button. We've got the two joysticks that are in the Xbox controller style, and then also a D-pad, which is actually very nice and clicky. It is a little smaller than I was expecting, but it still feels great and it's very easy to use. Okay, we got our right and left triggers, which are very, very clicky. They kind of sound like a mouse click, so just keep that in mind. You'll probably bother whoever's next to you if you're playing a game that's very trigger happy. And then we have analog triggers down here, which very good to see, although there's no mention of them being Hall based either. So I'm assuming they're just regular potentiometer like analog triggers. And that's basically it for the front. Two buttons in the back if you want to program those to do anything you need them for. And then for the top, we've got a power button, which doubles as a fingerprint sensor, which I was very surprised to see for a product of this price. Then we got our volume buttons, an exhaust fan, micro HDMI port, and then a TF card slot. I don't know why they call it a TF card slot, but that's the same thing as a micro SD card slot. And it is covered, so you just need to pop it open, just like that. And then you can access the micro SD card just like that. Although, with it being on top, I am glad that it is covered, so it just protected a little bit from dust and other things. And then in the bottom, we have the USB-C port and an audio jack. And that's all. Yeah, that's basically it. Going on to specs. For the specs, this has a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. And then there are three variations. There's the base model, which comes with 8 gigs of RAM, the Pro model, which has 12 gigs of RAM, and then the Max model, which this one is, with 16 gigs of RAM. And then the memory follows the same configurations, with the base model having 128 gigs of storage, Pro model having 256 gigs, and then the Max model, like this, having 512 gigs of storage. For battery, we get an 8,000 milliamp hour battery, which is insane on a device this size. That's basically the battery life you would find on like a tablet, for example. But Ayn somehow managed to pack all that RAM, that strong processor, large battery, along with Wi-Fi 7, Bluetooth 5.3, a fingerprint sensor, and actually really good speakers, surprisingly, all for a base price of just $300 as a filming on the base model, with the Pro model being just $369 and the Max model being $459. Now those are before tax, before shipping, so you may pay more. And then for the screen, we have a 6-inch 1080p IPS style display, And I have to admit, the screen looks amazing. Other than that, I mean, this device is pretty solid. Honestly, for the price, you would think it would feel a lot cheaper than it is, but in reality, this thing feels great. Upon my initial play around and whatnot, it was very hard for me to find anything that I didn't like. When it came to setting up this device, I noticed that they gave you the option of two different launchers. There is this launcher that you see over here, and then there's the Odin launcher that is an app on here. Now, I chose the original launcher, not the Odin one. And I have to admit, I'm not a huge fan of it. It's clear they tried to make it as simple as they could, but I would have really liked if they just made an app drawer, which I don't understand why one doesn't exist. So basically, every single app that I download is going to be on the screen, and then I have to now configure them all into folders and whatnot, including apps that I only need every now and then, like a file explorer, but I don't want it on my home screen. I want it in the app drawer where it's tucked away. Regardless, I mean, it's not a big deal, but it is something I would have liked to see, considering pretty much every Android device has an app drawer. So it just seems to me like AYN kind of went out of their way to remove it. And then for that, then they have the Odin launcher, which if you open it is a very simplified, almost like a Android TV looking kind of thing, where you can just add your shortcuts over here. So like if I press plus, pick an app, let's say the PSP Emulator, and I'll just add them in, and then you can use your gamepad to control everything. Pretty simple, very easy. And then on the left-hand side, apparently you can set up everything to be by category. So I can go to games and then system apps. Everything else seems blank by default. And then we also have our little performance tab. So I can go from normal to performance to high performance, a little shortcut here, along with the light for the handles and then the light for the joysticks. Speaking of which, they have LED lights on the handles and the joysticks. And then I will admit, one thing I didn't like was when you went in the settings. So right here, I go to Odin settings. I can turn on and off the LED and the side LEDs, but there's no option to control the brightness of them through their own settings app. It took me a while to find out that there is a way to control the brightness, and that's to scroll down here, click on ambient LED, and then you can control their brightness through there. It's not in the Android settings app, but it's through the Android quick settings. We have to click on the ambient light, which I wouldn't have guessed it would be there from the beginning. Personally though, I prefer them off. I find them very distracting, but they are pretty cool if you like them. And then other than that, you have your dark mode and light mode. So hey, if you're a dark mode liker or lover, it's an option. For me, I do like it in dark mode just because it looks cooler, but I'm not a dark mode kind of guy, to be honest. And then on the right-hand side, you've got options such as the brightness of your screen, and it's not going away. There we go. Storage, so you can see how much is taken up, how much is free. TV settings, so you can actually control what output this device brings out. Now, something to note, the USB-C port can do 4K at 60 Hertz. It's actually really cool to see that this even has DisplayPort out. And on my full review, which I do plan to make one later, I'm going to see how well these work with my X-Real glasses. That would be actually fun to use with a device like this. Yeah, and then you've got your Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, airplane mode, all on the right-hand setting over here. You can also change your wallpaper, but honestly, I don't really care about any of that right now. And then other than that, on your quick settings, you do have an option to control your fan. So that way you can make it quiet, smart, or sport, or you can just turn off the fan entirely. And then along with a performance option, if you want to do standard performance or high performance. There's also a charging separation button, which I'm not entirely sure what that does. I wonder if that's kind of like a pass-through charging, so it doesn't affect the battery at all. And if that's the case, that would be great if you plan to have this plugged in most of the time. And I'm glad that there's an option for it, so that way I can actually have my device charge quickly when I'm gaming and it's on a low battery, unlike my Legion Go. Other than that, I don't see anything else that really pops out that I should be mentioning. So with that said, let's go on to gaming performance. Let's see how it does. So I'm going to start off with a native Android app, and that's going to be SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom. Now, this is a game I played on my Steam Deck, which I really enjoyed. And then for here, I'm going to have it set to the full-blown quality setting. So everything is set to epic. Quality is epic. Frame rate is, unfortunately, the highest is 60, but the screen is only 60 hertz anyway, so it shouldn't matter. Let's go back. And then the nice thing with their Odin 2 is that they have this little quick menu over here on the right. So when you open this menu up, we have the option for screen mapping if you want to. If your game doesn't support, the built-in controllers, there's the option for you to have a built-in screen mapper, which is really nice to see. Then they've got your do not disturb mode. And then we have a speed up mode, which you would think is for your performance setting, but all that does is just clear the RAM. So if you need it, it's there. There's a live button if you also need that, screenshot, record, and then an AFK button, which the AFK button was actually very interesting to see. When you press that button, it basically dims the screen all the way down to its lowest setting and then leaves the device on. And I mean, if you're ever doing anything that involves being away from the keyboard, that's very useful to have so it doesn't go to sleep and then mess up your gameplay or mess up what you're doing. In my case, I actually found it useful because I was transferring so many games from my computer to here wirelessly. So what I did is I just activated the AFK mode, left it aside overnight, and came back with all my games loaded in without having to wait the entire time. I was able to do it while I was sleeping. But we also have the brightness option right over here, and then an FPS that if you press it, will actually display your FPS in the top right corner. And it's a floating FPS. So if you wanted to move it, you're able to, kind of like that. It is a little small and I got big fingers, so it takes some time to get used to. But basically, I just leave it in the top left corner. And then it also tells you your CPU usage, your memory usage, and the temperature of your device or your CPU. It doesn't specify which, really. Either way, pretty cool. And then there's different profiles. So that way you can have a profile for each I believe, key mapper, a guide, a key adapter, which I'm not sure what that does, and then a key test, so that way you can test everything is working. That's pretty cool. Let's go back. Now again, I have SpongeBob running here at full-blown settings, and it is running at a constant 60 FPS. It's very impressive. Although I noticed that the motors on this thing are the rumble motors, I should mention. They're very, very powerful. A little obnoxious, if anything. It's actually very, very loud. However, I mean, I'm playing with it muted right now just so I don't accidentally have any copyrighted music play. But I mean, if you have your speakers on the device, they'll easily overpower the vibration. But it does feel a bit powerful, but not too powerful like a massage gun or something. So, good on them. And I have to admit, with this screen, even though it's at 6 inches, it's honestly beautiful. The colors on here really pop. Anything bright looks great. Anything dark looks the way it really should. It's a very, very vibrant screen. And this game really helps me show it off. And yeah, basically this entire time we're at solid 60 FPS. It hasn't dipped much. It may drop to like 58 for a second, but overall it's pretty solid at 60 FPS. And honestly, that's expected. This is a very powerful chip. And honestly, I don't know if there's really any Android game that takes advantage of this chip other than maybe like Genshin Impact. But that's the thing is, unfortunately, with Android, we don't have a lot of solid native Android games that have been ported over from consoles. Meanwhile, iOS is getting games like Resident Evil and Assassin's Creed, and then we have, as far as I'm aware, just SpongeBob. And then Genshin Impact, Call of Duty Mobile, and that's really all I can think of. Yeah, but here's the thing. We don't buy this device for just native Android gaming, because the benefit of having Android as the operating system is there is a ton of different emulators. And that's the best thing about this is I can play PS2 games, Wii games, GameCube, PSP games, Game Boy Advance, any retro console basically, very easily without issue, especially because of how powerful this chip is. Did I mention how powerful this chip is? It's a very powerful chip. And again, you can get this at a base price of just $300. Although I should mention, you can't get the blue one in that base model, but you can if you go for the Pro. So yeah, I don't know how long I've been gaming here for, maybe a few minutes, but right now we're sitting just about 30% on the CPU and about 55 degrees Celsius, which is extremely reasonable. Yeah, it's handling this game like it's nothing. There's no issue with this at all. We've got all sorts of textures going on. We have grass, we've got water, we had robots fighting us, bubbles coming out of these little things. It's not dipping at all. Now we're going to run Grid Autosport, which is another native Android game. And honestly, this game also looked pretty great. And we're going to see how well it performs with this game. Now, while I set up this race, one thing I should mention is that the Odin 2 comes in the Nintendo layout. So the X, Y, A, B are in the Nintendo style rather than the Xbox style. The great thing is in their settings, they actually allow you to configure it whether you want it to act like an Xbox controller or their style controller, which has been very useful because in a lot of games I play, the B button, B on this device, not on an Xbox controller, has been acting as the back button, but now I've been able to configure it so it doesn't act that way. So thank you AYN again for offering that as an option. Quite honestly, they've done a really, really great job with this device. And here we're gonna play some Grid Autosport, which is running at a consistent 30 FPS. I don't believe this is a game that can actually go higher than 30 FPS. So yeah, but it's running really well. I will say that no matter how powerful this Odin is, it will definitely not make you a better gamer, as you could see from this. Oh boy. But the game looks great. Everything is actually running well. Even like here on the grass where I'm just doing these little burnouts on purpose, of course. Yeah, it's not even dipping, not even a little bit. I believe this is an older game, but still, this is running very well. And according to this, we're at like 27, 30% CPU usage and 52 degrees Celsius. No issue with this game at all. Now, for those of you who are tired of watching me basically keep spinning out because I cannot control this car at all, let's go on to some emulation and have some fun there. Now I'm going to give some PSP Emulation a try, just to start off with something light. I have PPSSPP running right now, and it is playing Need for Speed Most Wanted 510. And this game is currently running at 8x resolution, as you can see right here. And honestly, I mean, it's running at 30 FPS, which seems to be the resolution or the frame rate this game is meant to be ran on. And it is running without any issue. I mean, it's not even dropping a single frame. Not only that, but the game looks spectacular at 4K. Now, I will say it is a 1080p display, and you might be wondering, why should I care to set it to 4K? And you're right, you don't need to set it to 4K. But the fact that it can play these games at 4K just goes to show how powerful it is. Now, I will say it is a benefit that it can run them in 4K, because then if you ever wanted to, you can dock this on your TV and then sit on your couch and basically use it like a gaming console. And then when you're done, you can always undock it and take it on the go. And then best of all, this thing's got such a huge battery. I mean, I played a little bit of SpongeBob. Right now I'm playing this, and the battery only went down 2%. It's been like maybe 15, 20 minutes of gaming at this point. You know, I mean, sure, you're not going to see 15, 20 minutes of it in the video, but it just goes to show that playing these little games for 15, 20 minutes only drops it by a couple percent. Meanwhile, on like a Steam Deck, if I'm playing for 20, 30 minutes, I mean, I'm easily going to lose 10% or more depending on the resolution and game I'm running. Yeah, this thing is running so smoothly and without any issue. So now I'm going to try something that's a little harder to emulate. So we're going to go over to God of War Chains of Olympus, and we're going to see how well that runs on this device. Yep, and here we have Chains of Olympus running 8x native resolution, and it is at a solid 60 FPS. It is not dropping at all. This is truly impressive. And then next, I want to try out some PS2 emulation. So for PS2 emulation, I decided to start with Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2, which is a very light game. but I figured it'll be a great game to start with. And here we can see, I mean, we're running at a solid 30 FPS. Again, I'm pretty sure that's what this game was. Oh, and it looks like we dropped just a smidge with how many characters are on the screen, or racers, I should call them. But yeah, other than that, once they're out of the way, I mean, you're at a solid 30 FPS. I am seeing not a single dip. Now, to be clear, that dip you saw earlier, I mean, I get the same result on my Steam Deck, and that's running them at just 1080p. This is running the game right now at 6x resolution, which is 4K. Now, the next game I'm going to be trying out is Tony Hawk's Project 8. And the reason I want to try out this game is because I want to see how well the D-pad feels whenever I'm trying to do a trick in the game. And of course, this game is easier to run, and it's running at 30 FPS, no issues. Also, 6x resolution, which should be 4K. Yeah, and I can do all of these tricks very easily, along with getting a manual without any problems. I have to admit, everything about this feels really well. I mean, this device is just very well made, especially for the price. Now, next up, I'm going to try out some Wii Emulation. But so far, I'm really liking this device. Just like how you should like this video and subscribe so I can always see you on the next one. And while you're at it, if you ever shop on Amazon, I have an affiliate link down below. If you guys shop from there, it costs you nothing, but it helps me out so I can get more devices like these to try out and give you my opinion for the channel. With that said, let's go on to some Wii Emulation. Now, first game I'm going to try out is the new Super Mario Bros. I have it set to 4K resolution and I died already. Let's try that again. This game is running without an issue. I also really suck at this game. I should also mention, this is the first level. I don't know how I'm going to pass the others. Come on. Okay. Let's try that again. Right now I've got the suit. Yeah, it's running 60 FPS without a hiccup. Yeah, it's running this game at a solid 60 FPS. And the best part is this device starts at just $300. Sure, it only has 8 gigs of memory or RAM, but it's honestly more than enough for emulation. Basically, everything I showed here should work just fine on the base model. The only reason you would want more RAM is if you were going to play a certain game that requires more RAM, or if you wanted to do, let's say, like Switch emulation, which pretty much has 8 gigs as like bare minimum. Then again, in the future, as it gets more optimized, it may work with just 8 gigs of RAM just fine. As for me, I went for the max model simply because originally I wanted the 12 gigs of RAM, and the Pro model, I thought that was a sweet spot in terms of the price. But then when I added the case and the screen protector on, I wasn't too much away from the max version. So I figured I'll just purchase the max one because I wanted a screen protector and I wanted the carrying case. And yeah, I mean, this device has been awesome so far, and I am extremely impressed with it. I can't wait to play with it more and provide a full review for you guys. There's a lot of things I have in mind that I really want to try out. You know, for example, how well does it do as a home theater? You know, like not PC, but like an Android TV box. So I do want to throw on Netflix on it, connect it to a TV. I want to see if it can support, you know, Dolby Atmos or DTS audio or any of those kind of things. You know, I also want to see how well does it work when you do have it docked to a TV. And these are all things I'm going to be trying out on my full review. So you should definitely stick around and subscribe so you can see that coming up. It'll probably be another month from now because I don't like to provide a review after just a week of playing. I feel like that's not enough time to really get your thoughts in. With that said, let's see how the device's size is compared to something like a Steam Deck or the Lenovo Legion Go. Now, you may have noticed throughout the video that this is a rather small device, and you could see here how it fares up to my Steam Deck. Personally, I really love the size of this device because for portability's sake, this thing is great. When I went on a trip to North Carolina, this Steam Deck in its case took up a majority of my backpack's largest compartment. But now with this, I can literally throw it in my backpack, and it'll take up no more room than like a pair of headphones, over-the-ear headphones, just to be clear. And the best thing of all is because it's also running Android and it's so powerful that it's basically my tiny portable PS2, portable Nintendo Wii, portable GameCube, you name it. This thing runs everything I've thrown at it that's available in Android. I will try out other games such as Genshin Impact and Call of Duty Mobile. Unfortunately, those aren't games I normally play, so I'm going to leave them for a full review once I get them set up and figure out how to get those working and how to play everything, controller, mapper, setup, you name it. But yeah, I mean, looking at the size, it is a significant difference. And then if you guys want to see another difference, now I'm going to switch it with my Legion Go, which is obviously bigger than the Steam Deck. In fact, this thing is it's basically like the size of the screen of the Legion Go. I mean, it is a little bit wider, but overall, it's just so small, so compact, and really great, really. And then if you want to have another comparison, I'm actually going to put it up against a phone with a Razr Kishi put onto it. And this is how the Odin 2 compares to a OnePlus 5 with a Razr Kishi V1 basically plugged into it. And it's still very compact. Now, this phone has a 5.5-inch screen with tons of bezels on the top and bottom. It is an older phone, but you can tell that it is smaller in this way. However, with the Razr Kishi, it's just a little bit shorter with the Kishi, but regardless, very, very portable. And the best part is by having your phone and your gaming device separate, you don't have to kill the battery on your phone when you're on the go, especially if you need your phone's battery for like navigation or other things. You can kill the battery on the gaming device while not affecting the battery on your phone. Not only that, but you don't want to degrade the battery on your phone, and over time it's just going to last less and less. Meanwhile, this device seems to be pretty repairable enough that I do hope AYN provides the ability to buy replacement batteries, or maybe you can find maybe third-party ones on eBay. And now I'm going to try a bigger phone with the Razr Kishi, and that phone's going to be the Pixel 6 Pro. And now here I've got the Pixel 6 Pro with the Razr Kishi, comparing it up against the Odin 2. And honestly, the size difference between the Pixel 6 Pro and the OnePlus 5 that I had before it's not a big difference, but it is a slight difference regardless. I mean, this phone fits right on top. But regardless, putting this aside, it's so nice and compact. And again, for the price, might as well just have it as a companion. If anything, if you're like a hardcore Android gamer, it might be more cost efficient for you to get a gaming handheld at $300 and then buy a much more budget-friendly Android phone for like $400, totaling, $700 versus a flagship for $800, $900, $1,000 and up. So yeah, I mean, I can't beat the price. Can't wrap my head around just how great this device has been. It's truly a remarkable device, and I honestly can't wait to play with it more and try out other games, try out other emulators. And I really do hope that we start seeing more console ports to Android, just like we're seeing with iOS. That honestly would make this device just a million times better. Granted, if you're emulating, you have access to thousands of games, but having native Android games is also a huge benefit. I'm honestly still in awe at how great this device has been so far. It's handled everything I've thrown at it. It feels really great and high quality. It doesn't feel cheap at all, at least to my hands. Now, I do want to run it through its courses. I do want to try other things. I'm actually curious how well this chip runs compared to my own S23 Ultra. So I do plan to try to make a video on that in the future. So you should definitely stick around and subscribe. And yeah, with that said, let me know down below if there's anything you'd like me to see me run on this device, anything you'd like to see me test. Other than that, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.